Okay, so this C5OE should be a 65 engine block that was offered for the Mustang of that year. So this one should fit without any modification. But because I have another car, my 72 Maverick, that doesn't have an engine, I found an engine from an F100. So it's a Ford engine, but it's a little bit bigger than was ever offered in the Maverick. So I'm going to figure out how to get that thing into that hole. Just the intake alone weighs about 70-ish, 75 pounds. It's freaking heavy. That thing, the transmission, also freaking heavy. The engine block, yeah, no way I'm going to fix that up by myself. That's heavy. But all of that has to go in a hole that was never designed for an engine that big. I may have to modify these shock towers and other bits to make it fit. But rather than wrestling around the heavy metal while I'm trying to figure out what to do, I came up with a plan. I'm going to trace around the plate that goes between the transmission and the engine. It goes right where this piece of wood is, covering up this big giant hole in the front. So I'm going to trace around it, and I'm going to have a foam core board that's the same size as this, which is going to be tons lighter, easier to work with. We made a ramp so that this cart can sit level, because I know transmission mount is supposed to be level. So this piece of wood pretty close to level. So now I got the transmission set up pretty close to level. All right. We know this has to be parallel or flat, level. And this has to be perpendicular to level. So we did that first. We got ramps and blocks underneath the wheels of the cart, so that the cart can be level. This thing can be level, regardless of how I built the cart. Then I got these adjustable, so I can level the top of this ruler, straight edge. I've got 2 plumbs down to the front face of the transmission bell, so that the ruler is parallel to the front face. I centered the mark on 36 over the center of the transmission. And now I'm going to square up this cross beam and level it perpendicular to the first one. Now once all that is set up, I can take accurate measurements to build a template for this thing, because this thing is way too heavy to move around on its own. I 3D printed some brackets for my rulers, but you can do anything you want. I just found some sticks at the hardware store, made some brackets. You can even hang it from the, suspend it from the ceiling of your garage if you want to. The key is just to make sure that this is one plane is right at the front of the transmission. That way you have a reference at the center front face of the transmission in which to base all of our measurements off of. You can back up a bit if you want. So I copied the top of the cylinder, made it the same height as it is, and I made a base plate, marked it. Now I gotta mark it crossways to where the shifter comes out, and then that'll simulate this top piece. I don't need any of this piece because it probably won't be in the way. I just need to know where the center of this is going to come out when we mock it up inside the car. So I'll do that, and maybe where the rods are, mark those too. But yeah, so we're moving now. We're moving right along. Okay, we need to capture this detail here for a plan that I have with this particular car. You don't probably have to do this if you're just changing out the transmission on your car, but I have a special plan for this, and I need this. So I'm going to do it now while I have the chance. What we're going to do, go ahead and put a piece of tape, line up the bottom edge of the tape there, and then we're just going to scribble inside the tape the features that we need, and then we're going to put that piece of tape onto our foam core and then cut out the necessary features that we're going to do. So now we're just going to transfer these markings. You can even just rub it with your dirty fingers if you want, or a pen, and it'll make a mark good enough to... Okay, rather than do math to figure out where this template goes, fold the template in half one way, and then you fold it in the other way, lining up the first crease that you had. Then you got the center of your template. And then I marked where the center of the feature should go with the crosshairs. Then I can line up the folds of my template and then trace around my template. It's a lot simpler and faster than actually doing math to figure out where the edges go. Just find out where their center needs to be and then make your center on your template. There is the air box, the air cleaner that you might have seen in a different video. I'll just finish that for size, because that's the design that I made in metal, but I'm also going to just use the mock-up to save weight in this endeavor. There we go. I brought it inside because it's hot as hell outside. There's the finished transmission mock-up, mounting points for it. I stiffened it with a whole bunch of gussets, some extra long pieces, embracing all the way around. So now that, you know, it's pretty sturdy, I can pick it up pretty much on any feature I want without it deforming. Now we got to do the same thing with the engine block. The block is done. I got space reserved, an envelope for the oil pan. Got gussets keeping the shape. I got the mating plate done. The mounting points that I'm trying to get to were measured and accurate to the block, so those are where they go. Obviously, a lot of detail is missing, but there you go. Now I got some tape to tape this half to the transmission half, and we'll mate it up. There you go. The transmission mated to the engine block. There you go. I added a little bit here on the end because the bottom of the transmission is higher than the bottom of the oil pan, but I wanted it to sit level on the floor, so I added the little bit that I'll have to take off when I actually put it in the engine bay for mocking up. But for now, this is how she'll sit. Now we gotta add the intake manifold, valve covers, and the air box, air cleaner. So we keep adding pieces, measuring the valve covers, the valve block on both sides, the intake, and the carburetor body. And as you can see, it's just enough to make the shape. Bracing inside as needed, and only copying detail that I need. And I'll show you what the actual valve cover looks like here in a minute. Here's one of the valve covers, the actual valve cover. And I didn't need it to slant here, but I did need the offset. So I got this surface there, and I represented this connection with just a simple square. That's enough to block out. We call it an envelope model, so that I know where I'm building inside. So as you can see, that's how we mock up that, and we'll keep mocking up more stuff. Okay, here's the finished transmission. I just taped it to the engine block body with the oil pan side profile cut out. Here is the mounting detail that I actually do need. So here's where the mounting points are on the engine block. The surface is what all of this whole project was going after, was the location of that guy relative to everything else. So I have that all the way back to the mounting points on the transmission. So I got a good mock-up of the engine block. It was done the same way as this part was, using the two rulers, dropping plumb lines down, taking measurement, cutting blocks, taking more measurements, cutting more blocks, and now we'll just continue doing that. There we go. Added the intake, valves, carburetor. And there you have it. Air cleaner, carburetor, intake, engine block, oil pan, transmission, all super duper very light. Yeah, it's still fairly heavy. It took 12 sheets of foam core and a whole bunch of glue, but it's definitely not the hundreds of pounds that the metal bits weigh. So there you go. I call that a success. Now later on we'll show you how it fits, but I gotta wait for the weather to get cool first. Yep, modifications are in order. She doesn't quite fit. I know. Dang it. Well, it's a good thing this is foam, because this is easier to take back out than if it was the big old metal piece. But, well, that's why we built the mock-up. And now I know where to cut too. Bonus.